Hey folks, Professor K here. So in this video, I'm going to teach you how to improve your justification and look for hyphenation and justification errors in your InDesign document. If you choose to use hyphenated and justified text, one thing that you're going to run into is an issue called rivers, or spaces that are too large and distracting in your text. By highlighting hyphenation and justification errors, InDesign will actually show you where these errors are so you don't have to rely on your eyes to see them. But I can also show you how you can eyeball them and see where in your document they might be a problem. Let's get started. All right. So if you're following along, you're welcome to download the files in the description below to just follow along with this tutorial. Right now we're working in this magazine layout. And from last time, this will look familiar. What I've done is I've changed this paragraph style to body text justified. And when I do that, I might see just this little plus here. That means that there are some overrides somewhere within this copy, somewhere within this paragraph that are overriding this body text justified style. So the easiest way to get rid of that is to use clear overrides. This clear overrides button will take care of any formatting that may have carried over from a different program or your stuff and just get rid of it. So let's click that. Perfect. We can see that this adjusted a little bit. That's because that adjusted the tracking, because that's what we were dealing with in our last video. One other thing I'm noticing is that these spaces are really large. So as part of this paragraph style, the paragraphs actually have their own built-in spaces after them. So what we can do is we can just go through and delete these, and it'll look much cleaner. Perfect. So take a moment to look at this text. What do you notice about it that's different than last time we were working? Well, for one thing, it's justified. Justified means that the text is aligned to the far left and the far right at the same time. And the way that InDesign does this and other programs do it is through a combination of hyphenating your words so that roughly the same amount of characters are on each line, and then adding space between words like this to help even out that space. So that's how it can take that same amount of copy and kind of try and stretch and squish it to fit a shape. Ultimately, that's what you're doing when you're justifying type, is you're stretching and squishing each line just a little bit to try and fill the space. The downside to this is that it creates spaces in between type that are distracting to the reader, right? So anytime you have unevenness or things that are inconsistent from line to line, that interferes with readability. And in fact, this is a really important accessibility concern for folks with dyslexia. Having inconsistent spacing like this can really make it difficult to read their text. So let's take a look here and let's try identifying where these rivers, these extra spaces in between letters, might be showing up. I'm going to take off my glasses or defocus your eyes, just kind of squint a little, and see if you can notice any white lines running through the text. And I'm going to draw my mouse over where I see these white lines, these rivers flowing through the text. I'm seeing some there. And what's really distracting about them is that they kind of connect to each other. So I'm definitely seeing some here and some there. The reason why they're called rivers is because the space tends to flow throughout the text. And as you notice this, the reason why that flow happens is because the spaces are too large there and they're connecting to each other from line to line, creating a visual distraction. Now, if your eyes aren't sharp or they aren't as defocused as they could be, one thing that you could do is ask InDesign to highlight these things for you. So we're going to do that by going to InDesign, Preferences, and then we're going to go to Composition. Inside this Composition dialog under Preferences, you're going to see Highlight and then H and J violations. That's short for hyphenation and justification. Let's go ahead and click that and hit OK. And since we're in preview mode here, we're just going to go W, and now we can see, okay, I can see more clearly. So let's demonstrate that one more time. InDesign, Preferences, Composition. If H&J violations is off, hit OK, nothing will show. If you turn it back on again, Composition, H&J violations, and hit OK, now you will see where InDesign is saying, oh, you have too much space here. The way that this works is the more brightly yellow a line is highlighted, the worse the hyphenation and justification violation is. InDesign will help you fix these things. However, you need to set the settings up properly in order for it to do that. We are going to do that by changing the settings on this paragraph style to create a better base justification spacing than we have now. The way that we'll be doing this is through the paragraph style options panel, and I'm going to be following the recommendations of Accessible Digital Documents as a starting point for these settings. So let's go to Window, and then Styles, and then Paragraph Styles in order to open that panel. Here we can see all the paragraph styles available to us. And right now we are on Body Text Justified. We're going to go ahead and edit that style. And this will bring up the Paragraph Style Options panel. In here you can see that there is a hyphenation and justification set of settings. We're going to take a look at those here. Underneath justification, here are the settings where we can set word spacing, letter spacing, and glyph space scaling. Word spacing is going to be the space between words, and that's going to have the greatest effect on those rivers. So here, right now, our minimum word spacing is 80%. We're going to increase that to 90%. We're also going to leave our desired at 100, and you can see it's already trying to make some changes. And then for our maximum, we're going to do 150%. So there we have 150%. Under letter spacing, the minimum we're going to add is -5. Our desired will be 0, and our max will be 3. Remember, letter spacing is like tracking. So in our last video, we learned about tracking and how it can control the space a whole paragraph takes up and add or remove lines of space by changing the space between letters. So our minimum word spacing is going to be a little bit higher than it was before, but the overall words are going to shrink a little bit to compensate. And you can see now, compared to where we were before, let's just go back to 0 as the minimum on letter spacing and let that recalculate. Look how much of a difference that made. So here, we're going to go back to -5%. And then finally, on our glyph scaling, generally you don't want to scale glyphs too much, but they are a component or a factor in sizing like this. So we're going to allow just a little bit of room for wiggle room here. We're going to say you can be up to 97% of the full size, and you can go up to 103%. And notice that we're staying within like a 3% range either way. It's not noticeable to the eye, but look at this. Look at all of the hyphenation and justification issues we were able to fix just by changing the justification styles. We're going to click OK. And now we're going to take a look and see what are these last couple of places that might need a little bit of tweaking. Our goal is to get rid of these yellow lines. So with one of these yellow lines selected, let's see what happens. Does it get more or less yellow if we decrease the size of the tracking? There's 10, here's 0, and it might help to do this and just check. Look at that, just by adding a little bit of tracking there, we were able to get rid of that. Let's try this line now. Let's try going up. Perfect. And see how relatively easy this is? InDesign does a really good job of making this easier for you. And what I'm noticing is that it's more effective to go up than down. It seems like it's a little bit easier. Like, see how down makes it more yellow? It made it brighter. So let's try, we'll go up instead. And remember, we want to try and keep within 20. So if 20 doesn't do it, maybe that's not the right thing for us. So see here, this one line is starting to look a little overspaced. Now there's always exceptions in design. Let's see what 25 does. Still too much. Maybe we do -5. Ooh, definitely the wrong way. So if you encounter a time like this where you're just having a rough time getting it to work out, what might be good at this point is to reset this back to 0 and then say, can I add a discretionary hyphen? See where all these techniques are coming back in? Shift Command hyphen. And check that out. That discretionary hyphen helped us out. Let's try it with Luptatia here, which is not a real word, by the way. Shift Command hyphen. Well, that didn't do it. So InDesign doesn't want a hyphen there. Maybe we can just bump up this a little bit. We're at 20, so that didn't really help. -10. And see, it's hard to get these to work well together, isn't it? It can be really difficult. But ultimately, as long as you can get most of them into a good place, you should be good. So here, this one's going to be really difficult, and I don't think it's necessarily worth all the noodling to get this exactly perfect. You'd probably want to rewrite that. This one, when I look at this, this highlighted section, in comparison with the rest of the sections, it's feeling a little tight. So when I look at this, I'm going to highlight these two, and I'm going to increase just a little bit. And it's so funny because it's kind of a game of trying to get everything to fit together. It's not always easy, is it? Let's see if, oh, that did it. Okay, perfect. You'll notice that line by line, this is adjusting things above in the paragraph too. So one tactic we could take here is we could try overall increasing a bit and see if that does anything. It didn't really. We could also just keep going line by line and try to fix these little issues with our tracking. As you can see, it's really detail-oriented work. If you thought Photoshop was detail-oriented, you gotta think coming, because InDesign and typography like this is like the real deal. Now, what's making this challenging? Look at this. See this justify all lines? That makes your work even harder as a designer, because the last line in a paragraph usually doesn't like to be justified. Sometimes it can be short, right? So what I would recommend is justify with the last line aligning left. And that will generally make everything a lot easier. Notice how a lot of our problems went away just by selecting that. And that's because InDesign isn't trying to stretch everything to fit both left and right and top and bottom. The top and bottom part comes from trying to stretch this last sentence out. So now let's see what we can do here. This feels a little tight. I'm going to bump it up. All done. Perfect. This feels a little tight. I'm going to, actually it feels a little loose. I'm going to take it down a bit. Let me try taking it down one more time. Ooh, 10 is really tight. I don't like that. Maybe -7. No, that doesn't work either. Maybe I just need to expand this a little bit. Again, there's no hard and fast rule for what you should be doing here beyond keeping within ±20 for your tracking. But check this out. We were able to fix all those hyphenation and justification violations. And now, as I take a look at this, the last thing I would want to do is just equalize this so that it looks really nice together. So let's do that. And boy, there's just no winning here, huh? Check this out. We've got now a widow and an orphan. So in that case, we don't want this single line here. We don't want the single line up there. Maybe it's best to just leave that space at the end. Good typography is all about compromises. You can't, across the board, say that one thing is right. You have to make individual adjustments for the situation, and you have to kind of react to each situation. Whew! So now that you understand great typography and have had a chance to play with justified type, hopefully you understand why I don't recommend justified type all the time. It's really finicky to get right, and you have to adjust some settings in InDesign to really make it accessible for everyone. That said, when you do, it looks beautiful. So my takeaway from this would be Take on the justified type if you're ready for a challenge. However, be prepared to individually adjust a few lines, as well as potentially rewrite some of your copy in order to get it to fit. It's not an easy process, but if you do, it will look beautiful. Next, we're going to look at some creative layout techniques in InDesign and some fun stuff that goes outside the grid. I'll see you later.